Okay, welcome to your introduction to Photoshop / Photopea. I'm going through some other lessons and making sure that everything that you are asked to do, you can actually do in Photopea. So, first step is you're going to go to your class and you're going to find the Photoshop Photopea lesson. And you are going to download this file, the PSD file. So, go to the three dots, open it in a new window. And then up at the top right, you're going to download it. Okay, now for you guys, that's going to end up in your downloads folder. Okay, so let's go back to Photopea. We're going to open from the computer. You go to your downloads folder, and there it is, 01A start. Okay, this should open. Okay, so we're going to go through some basics. Whether you've had Photoshop before, or you had Mr. Suarez last year, or with contemporary media, or you've never used it before, that's okay. A refresher is good at this point. So just a quick thing. Over here on your left, you've got your tools palette. So watch as I click on the top tool. That's the move tool. I'm just going to put it, actually, I'm just going to mouse over it. I'm not even going to click. Okay. It tells me that it's the move tool. Now you'll notice next to move tool it says V. If you press the letter V, it selects the tool. And notice each one has its shortcuts. So those are the hotkeys. So if you're zooming around the program and you want to try and memorize the hotkeys, they are the same in Photopea as they are in Photoshop. All right, so we're on the move tool. Notice then when you click on the move tool, you've got these options up at the top, different things you can do with the move tool. You can add the transform controls, which add the little boxes around so that you can change that image, the size of it or whatever. We're going to turn that off for now because we don't want to accidentally change the size. But you'll notice as you click through these tools, if I click on each one, the options at the top will change, to be specific to that tool. Okay, so whatever tool you're on, your options will change and give you more flexibility in what you can do with them. All right. Another thing about the tools panel is if you look at these other tools, you'll see some of them have little arrows. Okay, what that means is there are more options. So if you click and hold down, you'll notice that it brings up another menu. Now, you can do the same thing by right-clicking. So you'll realize that there are other tools underneath. Now, one thing that's kind of nice about this program is that it resets your tools every time you close it and reopen it. One thing that kind of sucks about this program is it resets your tools every time you close it and reopen it. So if you are using a tool like the paint bucket, you have to go and find it each time. Now, if you don't need to change your tools, awesome. They stay the same each time you open it. So just, something to keep in mind. It's like if you're working with a tool and suddenly it's not there because you reopened it, you have to go and find it again. All right. Now over on your right side, you've got some things over here. You've got your history panel, which you don't really need. You've got your swatches that you will need. Okay, this is how you will change your colors. Notice if I'm clicking on them, it changes the color down on the bottom left. This is my selected color. Let's make it yellow. Okay, now I told you this the last time we looked at this program. By hitting the letter D, it resets your colors. And just in case you can't remember that, you've got the letter D right here. You can also swap if you want the bottom color to be the one that's selected. You can put it up there. Okay, and notice the top one is selected because it's got a little dark square around it. If I choose the bottom one, yeah, actually, I don't even think that works on here, so never mind. So yeah, your selected one is going to be the top one. All right, so you've got your swatches. You can add to your swatches, I believe. You can put a new one in there. You can load colors if you want. I do think this is kind of whack because it doesn't give you more than these basic colors. But if you need to change something, if you click on this color, you can go in and fine tune your colors to find whatever color you want. But I'm going to cancel that. All right. One of the first, I didn't get finished this. So under your swatches, you've got your layers panel. This is where all of your layers are. That's the cool thing about this program is that you don't just have to use one layer. You can add multiple layers and, put things on top of things and adjust just one layer at a time. And it's very versatile that way. You've got your channels, which we don't need right now, and your paths. They're all in this area here. Now, if you want to make adjustments, all that stuff is down here. Don't worry about that for now. We're going to talk about some basic stuff. So when you open a file, you don't want to work on top of the original. So the first thing you want to do is go in and double click on this little tab where the name of the file is. And we're going to change it. And I want you to get in the habit of giving your projects a name that is specific to you and to that project. So you might put your first initial and actually let's not do all caps. See there. And this is project 1A because we know that this is 1A. That's what the project name is. And then we hit OK. Okay, so notice it's changed the name, but there's a little star. That means you haven't saved it yet. So once you change the name, we want to save it as its own file. If we don't save and we close, it disappears. And some of you already learned this the last time we worked on the first little project, the Getting to Know Photopea. So we're going to save it as a PSD. Now for you guys, it's going to drop it into the Downloads folder. For now, that's fine. All right, so we've saved it. It's there. I'm going to get rid of those so I don't have to look at them. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to zoom in. Okay, and there's a couple ways to do that. You can do it with the zoom tool, and you go in here and you click on it, and it zooms in on the area you're clicking on. Now, the one difference that I've noticed with Photopea from Photoshop is that it doesn't have the handles, and that kind of sucks. So one way you can do to move around is you can use the hand tool to grab it and move things around. It's really not cool. Or if you want to zoom out, I'm back on the zoom tool. Go to the area you're at and hold down Alt, or for Mac users, that's Option, and click, and notice that it changes to a minus. So then I can click to zoom out. Okay, but for now, I'm just going to zoom in on the headlight of the car, and that's probably good right there. Now, another way to zoom in and out are the hotkeys. If you hold down Control or Command, if you're a Mac user, and hit the minus key, that zooms you out. Command or Control and plus zooms you in. Okay, now notice it's off a little bit, so I'm going to use my little hand and try and bring it up and put it in the center of my screen. This thing's kind of bugging me. It's in the way. So if I click on these little guys, it'll get rid of it. Okay, that's something that's a little different than Photoshop, but it's all right. We figure the little arrows, if you click on them a couple times, it'll collapse it down. All right, so we're going to try and do an adjustment layer. So first thing we're going to do is go over here to this elliptical tool. Actually, now that I think about it, it should be set on the rectangle select. We're going to right click and get the ellipse select tool. Now what this does is it creates an area that gets selected. When you let go, you'll notice you've got the little dotted line. So that area on the picture is selected. Okay, but notice it's not quite right. You know, we can try moving it. I'm pretty good at selecting, but I really just want the glass part of the headlight. It's up in here. So it doesn't quite get us where we want. So I'm going to hit Control and D to deselect. Okay, pretty simple. I'm going to try this again, but I'm going to show you a trick. So if I can get the cursor, the little plus, about in the center of the headlight, and if I hold down Alt and drag, watch what happens. Okay, it comes out from the center. Okay, it gets me close. Still not quite right. So let's Control D that. Go back to the center. Hold down Alt and Shift. And Shift will make a perfect circle. And that'll get us almost exactly where we want. Now let go of the mouse, then let go of the keyboard, and it'll keep its shape. If you do the keyboard keys first, it's going to change its shape and it won't work. It's still not quite right. So I'm going to do an adjustment. I'm going to go up to Select, and I'm going to transform my selection. Now if I go to the side and get the little arrows, I can drag this in so that it's just on the glass part. I can do the same thing up here. Just get the glass part of the headlight. Same thing on the bottom. Now I might have to readjust some things here. Bring this in a little bit to about there. All right, now I've got it. Now what I can do is I can click Enter and it'll lock it in place, or I can click the little check mark. I never really use the check mark myself. It's just easier to hit the Enter key. Okay, now I've got it selected. So right now, I'm going to show you that you can do some adjustments. Like we can go down here to this little guy, the new adjustment layer, and we can change the hue and saturation. Now don't do this. I'm just demonstrating what it does. I'm going to change the saturation. I'm going to pop that way up. See how it just changed the headlight? I can change the color of it. So I can make it a blue headlight. But we don't really want this. This is not what we're trying to do. So I'm going to collapse that, and I'm going to Control Z so I can undo adding that hue and saturation layer. So right now I just have it selected. I have no adjustments on here at all. So I Control Z twice to get rid of it. I want to select the entire picture. So before I do anything, with this still highlighted, this little dotted line, I'm going to hit Control 0. That zooms out so that the entire picture is in the frame. Now I'm going to go up to Select and select the inverse. Inverse means opposite. Notice that this is still selected here, but what it does is select everything except for what's inside that circle. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back down to the bottom right, and we're going to add a new adjustment layer. But this time, we're going to do curves. Okay, that's going to bring up this here thing here. Now what this will do is it'll adjust kind of a range of things within the picture. I'm going to go up to this top point. Notice I got one at the bottom, and on this diagonal there's one at the top. And I'm going to click and drag that over. And look at what it does to the picture. Now if you want to see a more dramatic look of what it does, just pull it down. And basically I can get rid of everything except the headlight. But what I want is just drag it over to that first big line right there. Okay. Now I'm going to get rid of that. Now, if you want to see what it did, because you weren't really sure, you can turn off the eyeball on the layer that says curves, and it'll show you how it changed that picture. All right. That's cool. I'm going to deselect, Control D. And I'm going to now zoom in on the area up above on that little thing on the wall, that little circle thing. Okay, it got me close, but it didn't quite get me there. So I'm going to click and I'm going to drag it down. Okay, let's use our ellipse tool. And this time I'm going to freehand it. I'm going to try and get it so it's about the right height. Okay, doesn't quite do it because it's slanted a little bit. So I'm going to use that same trick where I select and I transform, and I'm going to try and use the corner and tilt it. Okay, if that's not quite there, I can click in the middle. Okay, it's not quite right, so I grab my corners and try and get it on the outside. Okay, pretty good. Hit enter or click the arrow. Okay, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to go select. No, let's do something different. I thought of something really cool. So we are going to select inverse, and we are going to go down to an adjustment layer and click black and white. Now click Control 0 so you can see what it did. Everything is black and white except what we had inside. Okay, let me get rid of this thing. Let's Control plus back in while it's still selected. Okay, then I'm going to select the inverse again because I only want this thing. And now I'm going to do something really cool. Let's do another adjustment layer, and we're going to change the hue and saturation. Okay, so I'm going to change the saturation so it's a little bit brighter, maybe up to like 50. And then I'm going to change the hue so that it turns it purple. Okay, don't go too far because then you start to get some of this whack green stuff. So maybe if I pull it back just a little bit. Okay, let's get rid of this thing. Click on those two arrows. Control 0 and Control D. Now you've got a cool black and white picture with a little bit of color. And you can see how, this became real popular in the 90s and 2000s where people would black and white the background and make the person in color. All right, that's all we're going to do for today. This is a good little warm up on selecting things. Right now, go to File, Save as a PSD. It's going to put it in your Downloads folder. To double check, I'm going to go to my Downloads folder. There it is. Now I probably want to delete my old one. And just so I have this, I don't want to open it in Photoshop. So you get the point. You're going to, let me close that. We'll go back to Photopea. I'm going to, last step, export it as a JPEG. Okay, I'm going to save. And that's the one I'm going to turn in. So if I show it in folder, there it is. I open it up. There's my project. And notice it's named correctly. Seather 1A JPEG. Turn that in, and that is it for today's Photopea introduction.